very interesting thoughts coming from you. You've warned your investors that Switzerland's relationship to the euro is just a microcosm of what China's relationship is to the U.S. dollar. What do you mean by that?
Well, first of all, it's very rare that a central bank actually does something right. And fortunately, Switzerland did that, although I guess it's important to point out that what they did right was fix their own mistake. But China has been making the same mistake that Switzerland made, only for a long time, with the dollar. You see, the Swiss decided to put a ceiling on their currency to prevent it from rising against the euro, to preserve supposedly their export markets in Europe, because they were afraid that a rising franc would price them out of these markets. Well, China's been operating under the same principle. They think that they have to preserve their export market to the United States, and so they have a floor on the yuan. They're preventing their currency from rising, and just like Switzerland, they have trillions now in foreign reserves. They have bought all these dollars to prevent their currency from rising, but really what they've done is transfer purchasing power from their own citizens to Americans. And I think eventually they're going to get tired of throwing good money after bad, just like the Swiss, and they will remove the ceiling. And just like the Swiss franc, the Chinese yuan will soar in value against the dollar to the benefit of the Chinese people.
Okay, but what would the ripple effect look like?
Well, it would mean that a lot more of China's production would be consumed by Chinese people. They would get to enjoy the fruits of their labor, and Americans would be denied a lot of those products because we would be priced out of the market. And also, the value of Chinese savings would rise, their real incomes would rise. You would have consumer prices declining in China, which would be a boom for the Chinese economy, because as consumer prices go down, you experience an increase in your standard of living commensurate with a decline in your cost of living.
Well, Peter, it all sounds so good. Why isn't China doing it?
I don't know. I've been trying to figure that out for a long time. I mean, obviously, they're trying to preserve the status quo. And there certainly are factions that benefit from this relationship. I think no one benefits more than the United States, because we enjoy a massive subsidy at the expense of China. But, politicians, and even though a lot of the Chinese politicians aren't elected, I guess they still are worried about certain things. And so they're trying to preserve the status quo. But ultimately, this is undermining the standard of living of the broad population in China. And I think eventually China is going to change this policy. I think they're already preparing for a post-dollar world. I think they've been accumulating gold. We don't really know how much they've bought, but I think they're trying to buy as much gold as they can to have something other than dollars backing up their currency when they do float it.
I think we are all seeing that, and I think it is inevitability here for a lot of people watching what exactly is happening in China. But of course, it's going to displace a lot of power players in this global economy of ours. I mean, you say it's going to be like a 10 on the economic Richter scale. Are there going to be, but who are going to be the big losers here?
Well, as I said, in the short run, the United States, because we are the major beneficiary of this Chinese subsidy, because American consumers enjoy a higher standard of living. We get to consume without producing, and we get to borrow a lot of the Chinese savings, so we get to live in this phony economy. So in the short run, it's going to be very damaging to the U.S. Long term, I think it's the best thing that can happen to us, because I think the longer the Chinese wait to remove this subsidy, the worse it's going to be for us. I think on the other side, China, Southeast Asia, there are going to be a lot of people in these emerging markets that are going to see an enhanced standard of living, because as their currencies rise, so too does their purchasing power. All the factories that exist in China, they're not going to go away if Americans are too poor to buy the products. The products are still going to be produced. They're just going to be produced for the Chinese consumers rather than for the American consumers. And China is going to be a lot better off with their products than our paper money. Because, what good are the trillions of dollars that the central bank is warehousing doing to the average Chinese citizen? They're not doing any good at all. All they can do with them is buy treasuries, and when they mature, they have to roll them over into more treasuries. And when they get interest, they have to buy treasuries with that. They can't spend any of this money. And I think Switzerland was staring into the abyss, And they looked at the prospect of having to buy up even more euros now that Europe is going to be doing quantitative easing, and they didn't want to do it. Well, we're going to be doing QE4 probably before the end of the year, and China's going to be faced with a similar decision, because if we do QE4, and I think we will, and I think it's going to be bigger than QE1, 2, and 3 combined, we're going to expect the Chinese to buy the lion's share of those dollars, and I don't think they want to do it.